Mt. Gox got hacked and this exchange got hacked and other stuff got hacked. Those were central servers where people gave up their private keys for Bitcoin to a server that got hacked. Bitcoin itself has never been hacked. Anyone can set up a Bitcoin account. There's no qualifications whatsoever. Doesn't matter if you're like a farmer in Zimbabwe or like a banker on Wall Street. It really doesn't matter. Anybody can set up a Bitcoin account. And again, that is something that when you start to think about the implications of that, it gets really, it's a big deal. So there's low fees and there's no chargebacks and no borders. The chargebacks, if you know anybody that's in business, chargebacks for Visa can be kind of a pain in the butt. You know, they can hold up your money for a really, really long time. And no borders, this is actually really, really intense. In Zimbabwe right now, Bitcoin costs twice as much as it does anywhere on the face of the earth. And the reason for that is that the central bank in Zimbabwe will take, if I was trying to send you money and you lived in Zimbabwe, they're going to take 50% right off the top. And the main currency in Zimbabwe is inflating so fast that you don't even know a month or 2 months from now if it's going to be worth or going to have you even remotely any of the buying power from when you sent it. Or I could send you a $20 smartphone, an Android phone, and just give you a Bitcoin wallet and send you $1 billion in Bitcoin if I wanted to. And there's nothing anyone can do about it. Again, it's a pretty big deal. Blockchain technology has the potential to disrupt every major industry. So the blockchain is the technology that Bitcoin is built on top of. It's like, the internet was really just a protocol for computers to talk to each other, right? And from that, we now have these, magic rectangles that we talk to each other from. And we have, internet video and internet banking and internet, social sites like Facebook, all that kind of stuff. So blockchain is literally going to be that important for every industry that you can even imagine. So I do want to respect everybody's time. I'm going to open this up just for a couple minutes. If you have any questions, please ask them right now. You can unmute yourself and ask whatever you want, and I'll answer those questions as quickly as possible. Then we'll move on.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
My question is: now that I've bought the Founders Pack, what's next?
Okay, so we're going to end up talking about the actual mining stuff down the road. This is a solid question, and I'll get to that when we get into the mining stuff that we've done. Long story short, and this is weird, but I mean, there's ways to make more money on top of that. But if you bought a Founders Pack, you could just lock the password up and not do anything. Wait for Bitcoin to go up and wait for your mining contract to make you money, which is all stuff that we're going to get into in a little bit here. So I'm going to give it another 20 seconds. Does anyone have any questions specifically about, what Bitcoin is or what blockchain is? All right, good talk.
Hey, Corey, this is Tommy. I have a question.
Go, Tommy.
Many people are feeling that it's because it's not insured. They don't want to just throw their money out there.
Okay.
I understand the blockchain and how the message, but is that the security of it? Like where the thousands of computers won't let that transaction occur? Like that video is saying, the Bitcoin doesn't matter. It's what you assign to it. So how would you say that in like layman's term?
So that's an interesting question. Let me try and call that back just to make sure that I have the right point. So your friend is basically like, there are banks that are federally insured, right? So up to $100,000 per account, you're fine as far as like holding your money in that actual account. And so what is the analogy or what's the parallel in the Bitcoin universe? Is that kind of the question?
Yeah, because I think there's a lot of confusion with that. This is not a stock, but it's being treated like a stock, and even futures and stock payment, all that's starting to be used. Okay. And I didn't think stocks were secured.
They're not
I don't
at all.
know what they're talking about. I think there's a lot of confusion. So yeah,
right.
Maybe my question was too, but yeah, you're pretty much hitting on it. How would
we can touch on that, and I think the biggest thing is that the way to understand the biggest use case for Bitcoin, you can use it as a currency, so you can use it to transact value, right? But it's so volatile. It can go up 10%, it can go down 10%, it can go up 100%. Like it's so volatile that it's not always best to think of it as, just the way to pay for stuff, even though you can pay for all sorts of things. I'm going to get to that in a minute. But people are thinking about it as a stock because you could basically put money into it and expect a potential return. And I'll talk about that till I'm blue in the face. There's a lot of reasons why that's the case. It is not a stock. Bitcoin is money. It's always been money. It's just supposed to be money. It is a digital currency. So when you buy Bitcoin and the price is going up, that is because there's only going to be 21 million Bitcoin ever in the history of the world. There's only 16 million in current circulation. And because of the mining, which again, I'll get into in a minute and describe why this is so, because of the mining, you're only getting so much more Bitcoin coming into circulation. And there's 200,000 Coinbase wallets just in the United States. Remember, this is global, just in the United States, going live every few days, right? So way more people on the network, way more people taking part in the Bitcoin system, and only so much is out there. And you can chop Bitcoin into 100 million pieces. So it really just translates into the price going up. And because the price is going up, everyone's like, holy crap, I need some of that. Which honestly is what this is about, right? We're investing in this, so that's a point. But it is not a share. It's just money, right? And because it's just money, it's like investing in gold. And if you were investing in gold and that gold was in a warehouse and that warehouse had an open door, somebody could steal that gold and you would lose all your gold, right? In the Bitcoin experience, especially previously, like 4 years ago, whatever it was, with Mt. Gox, they basically were the first place where you could put Bitcoin, and they on that site would basically carry what is your private key, right? You can hold. I got my ledger somewhere around here. You can hold your Bitcoin in what's called cold storage. You put it on a little drive. I'm going to talk about this in a minute, but it's important to this conversation. You can put it in cold storage, and nobody will ever be able to touch it. But when Bitcoin was new, nobody really understood that, right? And so they were entrusting their Bitcoin to a website, Mt. Gox, that had all the security that one would need for what Mt. Gox was designed for, and that was to trade Magic the Gathering playing cards. Which, I mean, I don't know a whole lot about Magic the Gathering playing cards, but the security required for that was not high, right? But they had $300 million worth of Bitcoin on it at one point, and a hacker very easily got in, stole the keys, stole the Bitcoin, right? So to understand how safe Bitcoin is now, the actual Bitcoin network itself, which is a decentralized ledger, you got copies of the ledger on hundreds, if not thousands, of different computers that are all doing the mining. Again, we're going to describe how that is in a minute, right? That has never been hacked. Right? So, yes, your money, if you put it in a bank, is federally insured, but your US dollar is losing value every 5 seconds to inflation. And every week, Bitcoin on average goes up. So, it is a currency in the same way the US dollar is currency, but it is dramatically more accelerated on the technological scale because it's designed for scarcity. It's designed for its value as a store of value to go up. It's designed for our capacity to transact it, not to require a bank. We don't have to wait for a bank to okay a wire, which we have to do all the time now, right? They have the centralized authority to decide whether or not we can trade our own money back and forth. Bitcoin doesn't care, and it's borderless, right? So it's a much bigger thing than that. So is it FDIC insured? No, and good. Because if you have FDIC insured money, your money is losing value all the time. And Bitcoin on average is going up all the time. Tommy, does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, that was great. That was perfect. I appreciate that. It just, it keeps sticking, it's like duct tape. It keeps sticking as I hear it more. So that was good. Thank you.
Well, and hey, all of this is super new, right? And the concept is it really is new. So those are the kind of questions I think we need to address. So who uses Bitcoin right now? Like, if you have Bitcoin, because we're talking about making lots of Bitcoin, where can you spend it? You can spend it on Expedia. We just bought a trip through there. You can use it on Overstock.com. A friend of mine just bought his wedding rings on Overstock.com, which is fun. Newegg.com, Cheapair.com, Dish has taken it. Microsoft has taken it now. You can actually, and this is true, you can get an entire MIT university education and pay with Bitcoin. So the story of 2018 is going to be the story of new people taking on Bitcoin as a means of exchange all the time. And there's now ways to, for companies, and there's going to be more coming on in the next 2 quarters, where you can take Bitcoin and it will automatically translate to US dollar if you don't want to hold the volatility that is Bitcoin. So it's just basically information that's passing through. It's that expression of value, which means that I, who hold Bitcoin, can pay for anything that I want in any currency that I want, and it's going to be able to translate that on the fly. We'll talk about more on that later, but that's where the technology is going. So top global banks.
Craigslist just came out with the option of a person put something up for sale. You can say, I accept Bitcoin as a form of payment. You can check that box off and
Yeah,
swap
that's fun.
Bitcoin
So
that way.
my wife and I are moving into a catamaran pretty soon. It's kind of our lifelong dream to move into a catamaran. And she keeps telling me, "Hey, we got to sell all of our stuff." And like I'm like, entirely focused on all this stuff. I work 18-hour days, and I'm going to do that for the next 6 months because this economic shift is only going to happen once, right? We work really really hard for 6 months, and I'm going to be done. But at the same time, she really wants me to sell all of our useless stuff. And the second Craigslist said, "Hey, we take Bitcoin," I'm like, "Wait, I'm going to sell all of our stuff." Anyway, so all of these banks are now using versions of the blockchain to do international transfers because they are cheaper, safer, and more secure. We can talk about more of those if you'd like. Coinbase is kind of the first place that most people go to buy Bitcoin. It is also the place where if you make a ton of Bitcoin, you can attach your bank account and send Bitcoin from your bank account back to your basically you can send Bitcoin, back to your bank account in US dollar. Right. So people often ask, like, you can't spend it everywhere yet, and that's true. It's coming, but it's not there yet. So if you make a lot of Bitcoin, how do you bring it back to like pay your rent? And the way you do that is by attaching your bank account through Coinbase, sending your Bitcoin to your Coinbase account, sending it back to your bank, and then you can use it like you would use your bank card. So it's pretty good for that. So this is a ledger. This is what we talk about cold storage. The security issues that have occurred with some of the exchanges. And again, there's like 1,300 exchanges. We're seeing like one get hacked every other month. So per capita, it's really, really not a big thing anymore, even though that's what you're going to see in the headlines. But if you want to secure your Bitcoin and you have like $1 million in Bitcoin, you put it on one of these ledgers or 10 of them if you want to. And you throw that in your safe. And now your Bitcoin is entirely off the internet. It cannot be hacked. We call that cold storage. And in case these things get broken, you can actually create a paper wallet as well that will allow you to basically fix up or re-access your Bitcoin wallet anywhere in the world as long as you can get on the internet. So it's not like having $100 and losing $100. It's like having $100 on the internet and just losing the password to it. As long as you have the password, you can reinstate it. All right, so let's run through this a little quicker, and I'll open it up to questions here in a couple minutes. So again, if you have any questions, please ask me because I'm really interested in making sure we answer these. So we made this presentation about 6 weeks ago, and this is just deeply, deeply wrong now. But just to give you a little bit of backup, there's about 1,300 cryptocurrencies out there. There's about 6,500 markets. The market cap about 6 weeks ago was 200 billion. It is $500 billion now. I'm going to repeat that. The market cap for cryptocurrency is $500 billion. That's a big number. Anyway, so the 24-hour volume usually is around 8 to 10 to $12 billion. Bitcoin dominance is actually right around 60% right now, so that's the same. And that means that Bitcoin actually holds about 60% of the entire market cap of the cryptocurrency market. Bitcoin now, obviously, it's on $7,000. If anyone wants to chime in, I'm pretty sure it's about 16 to 17,000 per Bitcoin right now. And the volume again is probably about double that. Circulating supply, though, this is important. Circulating supply is still about 16,600,000 Bitcoin, right? And that's the main reason why the price keeps going up. More and more people are hearing about Bitcoin. More and more people want some, and there's only so much of it to go around. And because of the mining, there's only a little bit that comes online every single day. So that's what's driving price. I'm going to chat here. And that's a really good way to, thanks, McGuire, 16.8 on Coinbase. If you do have any questions, you don't want to forget it, feel free to fire them over in the comments, and we'll get to them when I open it back up. So just to run through a few of the other coins. Ethereum is a coin they designed to be a smart contract token. So while Ethereum is a currency that you can buy and hold, and you can accrue value, you can spend it, it's also a way to do smart contracts. So on the Ethereum network, I can put my house up on that network, the title of my house on the blockchain, and you could put your money up on the blockchain. And because we've decided that I'm going to sell my house to you on the blockchain, that happens. And now you own the house, I own the money, and that's on that ledger forever. Think about this, just as a small little thing. Title companies are screwed. You will never need title companies ever again because Ethereum now exists. And that's like the tiniest thing of the tiniest thing of where this thing can go. Bitcoin Cash is a pretty big market cap thing. That's actually a fork of the Bitcoin coin itself. If you're curious about that, that's like an hour-long conversation. We can get into that. Ripple, my buddy Oldano, is on this call. He was like, man, everyone's got to buy Ripple. Everyone's got to buy Ripple. And I said, dude, with a circulating supply of 38 billion, this coin is never going anywhere. Now, this coin is what the banks decided to start using to do international transfers themselves, right? They want to take the blockchain technology and use it for themselves, which I get. That's like Blockbuster streaming videos because they want to try and get in front of Netflix, right? At the end of the day, though, the technology suggests that banks will not be essential or even important in the future, but they still made Ripple. And the way that we see this personally, and there's arguments against this, I think, that could be valid, but the way that we see this is Ripple is their way to try to stay relevant in a world that no longer needs them, right? And again, it feels like they do because we're still in that old paradigm and we're shifting out of it, but they're using that technology to good effect. And I didn't think it would have any value over 25 cents at all, and I think it's like, what, 35, 40 cents now? And it might go higher. So again, while we're educating people on this, we're all learning about this stuff too, and it's the Wild West. So we're giving you the best information we have. I was telling Jonathan for the longest time, Ripple's not going anywhere. It's not going to go above 30 cents, and I was wrong. And then now, granted, I think my accuracy rate is about 90% still. But dude, that one, it did good. There's just no way around it. So that's Ripple. Litecoin is actually a way that they started testing really, really good ideas that they didn't want to test on the greater Bitcoin network. And there's some things that are going to come out in the next 2 or 3 years, I think, and probably sooner, between Bitcoin and Litecoin that will basically solve problems that they both have, which I think is going to be really, really interesting. Dash is another coin that's really, really good. Long story short, there's a lot of altcoins that are coming out that really do have good use cases, and they have really good value. So putting the world's money into perspective, this is kind of what we were talking about. We were talking about this a little bit before coming on air. Again, this slide's a little bit old. The market cap for all currencies is, of course, $500 billion, not 200 billion. And I'm pretty sure that Bitcoin itself is about 250, 260 billion. Someone could probably correct me on that. So right now, altcoins are way, way bigger than Amazon, which is incredible. But the currency, or not the currency, but the market that we're actually playing for initially, right, is the gold market cap at 8.2 trillion. Now, the altcoins are going after Forex. They're going after all of money. And they have a really, really good shot of destabilizing that entire, $83.6 trillion market. But the gold one is where Bitcoin really shines, right? The biggest reason, in my opinion, that people would buy gold is to hedge against inflation, right? You want to hedge against the fact that people are printing money, all the time. So the power of your money is going down. Even if your investments, the reason why hedge funds exist is that you have to stay ahead of inflation to even have the same amount of buying power that you had before, right? So people get into gold for that purpose because it has this staying power of value that has a tendency to operate in direct contravention to people printing fiat money at will. And the reason for that is scarcity. There's only so much gold. There's only ever going to be so much gold. And guess what? The guy who created Bitcoin took the same algorithm that comes from having gold only at a certain amount and having it have a value and having people mine it at a certain rate and having that value be comparative to global economics, took that algorithm and built Bitcoin on top of it. That's literally how Bitcoin got created, right? And so in the same way that you could manipulate the gold market, which is why they got away from it, by buying all sorts of gold mines and getting all, sort of like honing the market, so to speak, for gold, they got rid of all of that stuff for Bitcoin. So that it's basically a market that is always going to be supply and demand. You can't mess with it. So that's sort of the market that initially Bitcoin itself is going after. So the gold market cap is 8.2 trillion. If we get even half of that, remember, we're like $250 billion right now just for Bitcoin. If we get half of that, Bitcoin is between $1 and $2 million a coin. Let me repeat that. If we get to the point where we have even half of the gold market, and this is globally, right? Half of the gold market, and we're at $250 billion right now. If we get up to $500 billion, Bitcoin is $1 million to $2 million per coin. And that's based on the fact that there are more and more people that want Bitcoin all the time because it's way easier to track around than gold, right? And it accrues more value than gold by an order of magnitude or two, right? So these things they just make sense. When you realize why people are getting into either one of these things, you realize why they're going to Bitcoin instead of gold. So 2017 return. Again, this slide is a month old. Bitcoin is actually up about 1,500% over 2017. global real estate's up 5%. Gold actually had a good year at 10%. Global equities are at 8.3%. And we bring this up because, like, if you're in a mutual fund, you might do between 7 and 13%, depending on whether or not you're in a good one. Now, every 8.5 years, there's a global equities downturn. We are way overdue for that. Been talking to people about this a bunch, and they're like, "Hey, I'm just gonna ride my 401k. I'm gonna ride my IRA down. It's totally cool." The banks literally surf that stuff while shorting the market, right? If you have an IRA or 401k, know this: the same bank that holds that 401k will short the market that it's holding your 401k in while you lose money. This is just a thing that happens. My mom lost half of her retirement fund. She had to work another 8 years, which obviously, yes, go ahead.
You've done forex trading and that sort of thing prior to
Yes.
getting involved in this, correct?
That is fact.
All right, so you have knowledge into these sort of things.
I mean, a little bit, yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Well, I'm a relatively well-read guy. When you watch your family lose a bunch of money, my only way to deal with that was to read a bunch of books. And when you find out exactly how the economic system globally works, never mind just in this country, the only appropriate reaction is disgust, because it's not built for us, and it never was, right? So when somebody offers us this thing that, I mean, never mind whether you're from Canada or the United States or the UK or whatever, when somebody suggests, "Hey, wait a minute, we could from the ground up," and this is literally how Bitcoin started, from the ground up, we just have this currency that people use themselves, and challenge those ideas at a really, really base, sort of like base abstraction level, you can see some really, really amazing results, and we're seeing that already. So 10,000 years, all we've had is gold and silver, right? About the 70s is where we turn to fiat money, which basically means the governments are just going to make this stuff up. Which, for the record, we've seen a lot of economic growth in a general sense from the 70s moving on forward. But if you look at per capita production versus per capita pay, the early 1970s is where that is a massive demarcation, right? Like, you have a massive increase in per capita production in the last 30 years, especially in the Western world, 40 years, and basically flat wages. And there's a serious correlation there. But in 2009, after the 2008 housing crisis, after the bubble, they're like, "Hey, why don't we try a technological solution to this?" And they started testing this out. And this is where all this cryptocurrency stuff came from. In 2013, there was less than 0.01% adoption of Bitcoin, even understanding that it existed. And this is when they were calling it drug money. They were talking about it being part of the Silk Road, that kind of thing. In early 2017, only 0.1% of people had ever heard of Bitcoin, and they were calling it a bubble. They've actually, if you look back, and I've done this, you look back into the actual inception of Bitcoin itself, it went from $10 to $100. This is a bubble. Everyone's going to lose their money. Everyone's going to just lose it. Oh my goodness, this is a giant bubble. It goes from 100 to 1,000. Oh my goodness, everyone's going to lose their money. This is a bubble. Everyone's going to lose. Oh my goodness, this is the most horrible thing ever. And this is important to note: Mt. Gox happens. And nobody understood that Mt. Gox was a Mt. Gox problem, not a Bitcoin problem, right? However, it went from $1,000 down to 200. And when it hit 200, everyone said, "Bubbles burst. Bitcoin is over. This is ridiculous. It's all going downhill. We don't have to worry about this anymore." When it was at 200, where is it now? $16,800 per coin. This was a year ago, right? It's just incredible. And of course, you can hear people saying it now: "This is a bubble. It's never going to work. We should totally get out of here. Responsible people will never put their money in this." You'll notice all the Wall Street guys that have had access to Swiss bank accounts since they were 5 years old, they're the ones saying this isn't good, and that it's a bubble, and then we're all going to die, right? Yeah, JP Morgan, the CEO of JP Morgan, basically said the same thing. It's a big fraud. Literally 2 weeks later, JP Morgan was the biggest buyer. Companies owned by JP Morgan were the biggest buyer of the dip of Bitcoin. And now they're changing their tune. So it's interesting. So long story short, cryptocurrency is taken over. And when you understand that it's borderless and that because of the internet, you can't stop it, I've been waiting for people in the U.S. government to have a much stronger stance against this, because it's a severe, real threat to global economic power based on the USD.
Hey, Corey.
Go ahead.
Hey, I was just gonna say, Tara, the chick that was on the other night, her husband Chris actually works for J.P. Morgan, and was told that if he bought into Bitcoin in any way, shape, or form, he would be fired.
No,
And now J.P. Morgan is one of the biggest ones. They're buying the shit out of this.
Yep. Hey, anytime you want to buy the dip, create a whole lot of fear, right? Drive the prices down because there's no regulation in this market, so insider buying is entirely acceptable, right? And you buy the dip, and that's exactly what happened, right? The Chinese tried to destroy it. They got rid of every single exchange. They closed down every exchange, and they were the biggest for a while. China was the biggest for exchanges, and the biggest for ICOs, initial coin offerings. They turned it all off, and the price of Bitcoin went from 6,000 to 5,000. Everyone starts freaking out to 4,000. I just got back into the space, so at 4,000, I'm buying like crazy. Like I didn't even know what was going on. I just knew it was like 30% off the price, so I was all in. And by the time it hit 3,000, the algos that, and by algos I mean there's computer software programs that all these large institutions are using to buy Bitcoin. They took over. It was at 3,000 for 5 minutes, and now it's at 17. So that's a real thing. But before we go too much farther, we're gonna get into some of the things we've done. We've done a lot of trading. Again, I'm gonna basically try to argue that doing trading yourself is not the best idea. Although there's some people that can handle it. We'll talk about that. I want to make sure that everyone at the no matter what, it really is a good idea to look at things like Bitcoin, things like Ethereum, things like Ripple, frankly, and kudos to you, Jonathan, for calling that one, and buying and holding them for a couple of years, right? Things are at all-time high right now. So if you buy things like Litecoin, Ethereum, and Bitcoin, expect a 30 to 50% retrace in the near term, right? Just expect that. And that said, it might not happen because Bitcoin rarely listens to me.
Shut up.
It just goes up and up and up. But at the same time, these things would be reasonable from a technical analyst point of view. So we're going to talk about some things that we feel are safer and smarter than that. But in the interim, we want to leave you with this thing. There are safe ways to buy and hold Bitcoin. There are a lot of really, really good reasons to get into this space and just take part in it. If that's the only thing you take out of this, please, please, please go and do that and get educated around it. So before we go on with any of this stuff, I'd like to open it up. And if anybody has comments or questions, actually, I was thinking McGuire, if you're still here, he's the adopted lawyer in our little crypto consultants little family here. Could you maybe talk about you've been doing the whole lawyer thing for a little while now. You're actually kind of a big deal in the whole space. Why are you so interested? I mean, you are whatever you are. And why are you so interested in Bitcoin and cryptocurrency? Like, what about this is important for you? But I would love even more than that to hear about why.
I keep telling her to be quiet. I'm trying to listen to this.
I've followed it on and off, and everyone literally has this type of story where 4 years ago it was $150, $250. I'm going to put 10 grand in. It dropped or went up or down, and the same thing for me. Was going to drop 10 in, and it didn't. If I had, we wouldn't be talking today because I'd be on my yacht. But I followed it a little bit, and I'm 41-ish, somewhere around there now. And just seeing the way the world is trending for me, I've become more and more kind of, let's say, libertarian, and watching government manipulate and get involved. I literally saw on Twitter today, some stupid news media posted out that don't eat Christmas cookies until you cook them because you're going to die. Are you kidding me? That is none of the stuff that I want to hear from my government. Just do the couple of things that you're supposed to do. And so watching them manipulate money, watching money disappear, again, Corey with his mom stuff, my parents with their stuff, my brother with his 401k working as a cop for like 14 years and watching half of that get destroyed, watching him have to now contribute more than he had to contribute before, was all just part of the collection of things that made me kind of, I guess, start looking a little bit more into this. And then when Corey and Travis started talking about it, I got even more involved. Literally the first day after I talked to them, I went into one of the clubs that we're in and have since increased a bunch then. But being able to transact, I've done a lot of reading on the blockchain and looking into that stuff. being able to transact and work in that way that doesn't require a bank or a third party to either charge me a fee or something like that, that part's fascinating. My mom was down this weekend and wanted to get in and wanted to get some of her money. It literally took us an hour and a half on the phone for her to be able to withdraw $5,000 out of her $70,000 in her account for her to use. It was absolutely outrageous to get some random person who's like, oh, well, we do it for security. She gave you her name. She gave you her birth date. She gave you the name of her actual bank manager who knows her. She's transacted in hundreds of thousands of dollars moving, buying property, and you're giving her a hard time about getting $5,000 in cash because she's not at your bank. That's crazy. And so the underlying stuff, I really love as just getting people out of my business. I just don't need all of these people involved in me doing a simple transaction and taking a portion of it. So, I mean, that's one of the things that I really have liked as I'm exploring more. And then looking into some of the legal stuff, there's a lot of stuff to get involved and look at there. You do have to pay taxes on it, short-term, long-term capital gains, depending on how long you've held it.
Which is nothing if you think about it.
Don't try and write that.
Right. You can make $10 million in Bitcoin, and then if you send $100,000 down through Coinbase, you have to pay capital gains on $100,000.
Don't think you're going to be laundering a bunch of money out of this thing.
That's the thing. Like, why would you even bother not paying taxes on that? Anyway, thank you very much for that, John. And that is the fundamental core thing, is that we've been so anesthetized, and we've become so accustomed to centralized control over our finances that we just sort of take it for granted, because like terrorism or something, right? And it's and again, like I'm from Canada. I'm effectively a communist, for the record. Like, we're a socialist country. I love nationalized healthcare. I think it's fantastic. But the idea that these people have so much control over this, knowing how they run, centralized governmental investing institutions and things like that, this is just better. And the only reason why we want people to think about this